Welcome to this evening's version of Meeting in a Box. My name is Mary Ellen Rose, and I'll be conducting this session. The Gloucester Comprehensive Plan has an opportunity for every resident in this city to conduct their own meeting in a box. A meeting in a box is a civic engagement method designed for use by community groups, associations, or friends to gather at a convenient time and location to share their ideas for the Gloucester Comprehensive Plan. The Comprehensive Plan will be a 10-year vision and roadmap for the future. It will serve as the foundational policy document for the city, guiding local decisions about future growth, preservation, and change. So it's critical that community members engage, give their input, and help shape the focus and priorities of the Comprehensive Plan. Tonight's version of the Meeting in a Box is hosted by KPAC. The KPM Political Action Committee is a nonpartisan group dedicated to maintaining the integrity of our constitutional republic and the common values that promote personal freedom, personal responsibility, and limited government. The purpose of KPAC is to support candidates for political office, regardless of political party affiliation, and causes consistent with the mission of KPAC. KPAC members shall be legal residents of Cape Ann, including Essex, Gloucester, Manchester, and Rockport, who support the mission of KPAC. And they're evidently looking for members and welcoming members, so if you want any more information about that, you can reach out to them. So I'd like to go ahead and let our guests tonight introduce themselves, and we'll start with my left.
Hi, I'm Nick Pramus, and I live on Bond Street.
Good evening, Pippi Giuliano. I'm from Ward 4.
Greg Doe, I live in, Greg Doe, I live in West Gloucester.
Hi, I'm Lewis Hubble. I live in West Gloucester.
Jane Fox Dobbs in West Gloucester.
Joe, and I live in East Gloucester.
Great. Okay, so what you'll get when you host a meeting in a box will be this packet. And part of this, we're going to use this as an opportunity to train you as to what will be expected. And this package you can get from the Gloucester Planning Council or from Community Development Department. And the first page, we could all turn to the first page, it's introductions. And what everyone will be expected to do is put their name, email, neighborhood, and there is a drop-down menu for the neighborhood. So the neighborhoods listed are Annisquam, Bayview, Briar Neck, Central Gloucester, East Gloucester, Eastern Point, Lanesville, Magnolia, Pierce Island, Riverdale, Rocky Neck, West Gloucester, Wingashiek, and not a Gloucester resident. So hopefully you're all familiar with which neighborhood you're from. So if you want to have the data that is from phase 1, you can access that information in the Gloucester City website. Go to the top of the page, you'll see a red dot which says Comprehensive Plan, and then you'll be able to access that page under phase 1 and then the existing conditions and profiles. And that'll be helpful information for you as to where we stand today. There are 3 options for providing information to this comprehensive plan. The first is through a survey that you take online by yourself. It's mostly quantitative information, multiple choice. The second is a crowd map. And then the third is a meeting in the box, which is what we're doing now. So our first question is called Special Places. And we're asking members to list your community's special places. So for our panel here, I want you to just talk about, it can include any natural landscape feature or built places. What places, if lost or damaged, significantly change the characteristic of your community that you love? We do have scribes taking notes off camera. So are there any special places that you want listed on this page?
Our beaches, and we need to protect our beaches because it seems like the Audubon Society is taking a lot of it, more and more, for longer and longer time each year. We need to protect that, or in 10 years there won't be a Wingashiek or Good Harbor or whatever. We have a lot of good beaches.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Stagehorse Park needs to be taken care of better, more maintained. We give it more of a vision instead of haphazardly going in there and piecemeal in projects. And just better maintenance of all our parks and landscapes.
Okay, thank you.
I would say for me, I'm a little more of an open space person. I think all the beauty of Gloucester and downtown area is spectacular. Our beaches are spectacular. One of the things that I've enjoyed the most is the Dogtown Common area is a spectacular area for bouldering and climbing, if you're into that sort of thing. Near where I live, behind the You Store It place on Essex, is Red Rocks, which is a spectacular top roping climbing area, and we have some of the most spectacular hiking trails in the area listed on all trails. I think developing some of that ecotourism would be really beneficial. It would also help protect it, as some of it is private property, some of it is city-owned property. I think putting some sort of a system together to coordinate that would be very helpful.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have any special places they want to list to preserve or save or?
I was going to say Dogtown. I really enjoy going up there,
Special place.
see the boulders and Roger Babson and all the whole history. It's my understanding that there's some kind of I don't know how to put it, legislation or something. They're trying to turn it over to a trust. Is that correct? Does anybody know?
There was some talk to make it a parkland or some state to take it over, or federal government, I think, a little bit. And of course, a lot of people were down on that
Yeah.
because they look at the big picture. But
Well, I think if you did an aerial over the years, it's shrinking. You know, Cherry Street, and then around the backside in Rockport. You know.
So don't be afraid to reiterate what somebody has
I have
already
my
said also,
Yeah.
because that gives strength to a position and a place.
I have a
James?
list. I did a list. I'll just read it to you because I wrote it down. I look at two important churches as Our Lady of Good Voyage and St. Anthony's Chapel. There's 10 greenbelt properties that a lot of people aren't aware of that do exist in Gloucester. You have the Annisquam Woods, the Back Shore, Carter Reservation, Gabrielle and Selma Reservation, the Goose Cove Reservation, Harvey Reservation, Naughty Woodland, the Seam Fields, Stony Cove and Crescent Point, and Thompson Street Reservation, which also has the Old Cart Path. There's 3 lighthouses that are important: Annisquam Harbor, Eastern Point, and 10 Pound Island. There's 5 museums: the Cape Ann, Hammond Castle, Maritime, Sargent House, and Sleeping McCann. There's 3 important salt marshes and sanctuaries: the Annisquam River, the Eastern Point Wildlife Sanctuary, and the Jones River Salt Marsh. And last but not least, and most important to me, is the waterfront, which is Stacy Boulevard and Stage 4 Park. That's in a nutshell.
Excellent.
And I think also it's good to point out that some of the work that has been done nearby where we live, with the improvement of that parking area right by 128 and Concord Street, and the access into the woodlands where they go mountain biking and a lot of hiking, was, in my opinion, spectacular. Because before, the only way to get up in there was coming into the neighborhood and trying to figure out where to park, and that is really great mountain biking. I'm not a mountain biker, I'm a hiker, but I thought what they did there was very good. And that sort of development, then that's what I'm talking about, that I really like.
I'd just like to weigh in and say that all of these places mentioned are absolutely vital to the character of Gloucester. So one of the things that I would like us to consider, and all citizens of Gloucester, is to keep a vigilant eye on the development of these places, because when we talk about Dogtown, for instance, we all had an idea that there's something up. It's up to us to keep our eye on what's going on, and to be aware of that, and to give voice to what's happening there. And I'd just like to say one other special place for me is the Dory Shop with Gino Mondello, and he's been a wonderful advocate for kids growing up learning the old woodworking skills of dory making and so forth. Down at the Maritime.
Yeah, I was in there
That's one of the
yesterday.
places.
I mean, that's a little hidden
Right,
gem.
it is.
Yes, that's a great one. Okay, is that it in that section? Okay, let's go to activity 2, and I will start the timer for 15 minutes. minutes. A community vision describes what community members want their community to look and feel like in the next decade. It is meant to be hopeful and aspirational. It paints a mental image of what the ideal Gloucester will be like in 10 years. A vision helps the community reach for goals above and beyond what may be expected and discover possibilities that may not have been apparent before. Imagine the ideal future. How do you picture Gloucester in 10 years?
I'd just like to say that this is probably one of the most difficult things for a person such as myself, who's sort of lived mostly in the 20th century, and to imagine what the 21st century beyond is going to look like is just, because it's changing so rapidly, so quickly, it's very hard. So I think if we're talking about a plan for 10 years from now, I think we need expertise. We need independent minds coming to share with us situations of a like kind. For example, harbor communities or coastal communities changing. What have they succeeded at doing? What is most difficult for them? So I know that Manchester had some help from a university when they were given the task, as we've been tasked with the MBTA overlay and for zoning changes. So I think we need independent information in order to move forward with our community.
So part of this plan is to look at what the community members themselves also envision, which I do think that it's a lofty request of what do you see Gloucester in 10 years as looking like. So
I think that probably, obviously, this is only the second exercise, but I think this is one of those hot button topics that all the opinions start to clash over. I moved to Gloucester almost 30 years ago because I drove onto Cape Ann and told my wife at that point, we're living here and nowhere else. This is where we're going to find. I rented an apartment that day and never left because it's perfect, in my opinion. I have enjoyed, but I also like development. I like seeing things, the past remain the past and encapsulated in a place, as well as realizing that everything needs to move forward. So over the last 30 years, watching areas that previously might have been undeveloped, a little bit of blight, whether you agree with it or not agree with it, I've enjoyed watching things develop. The hotel, Beauport, going into where that area where the Bird's Eye factory was, the improvements in and around Fort. It's not tons of things, but just little things that over time we have moved forward and developed into something else. I'd like to see that continue, but also acknowledge some things really need to not change. We should never change the character of Main Street. It's my thought on it. I would love to see Main Street, even if it is a seasonal thing, become a pedestrian way for part of it. So at certain times of year or certain times of the week, there is no traffic on that part of Main Street. They do it from time to time now as it is, and it's a spectacular time. I think developing that idea further, not as a permanent solution, but as something that maybe it's only in the summer and only on Saturdays or whatever it is, for businesses to have access to what they need to operate.
what do you, if I can ask, so if you were to describe the character of Main Street, what is that character of Main Street? What do you mean by that?
It's the quintessential walking, shopping experience between being able to get some sort of entertainment or cuisine, being able to shop unique items that are from here, the sailmaker shop. There's all sorts of things that are in and around there that are unique to Gloucester. I guess the Cut just opened a couple of weeks ago. I was super excited to see when that opened because it's alien to anything else that was down on Main Street. And which brings me to something I'm sure we'll address later, which is infrastructure, because there's no parking down there for that. So, but I like that sort of feeling. I like it's almost a European style, where it's very small, very intimate, easily accessible, but you're not walking in the middle of 100 years ago. You're walking in the middle of now with the feeling of being back.
No, I love old New England main streets. Any town I go through,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
Gloucester has one. We need a little more encouragement there. The retail stores closed too early, but we have great nightlife and restaurants and the like. The vacant urban renewal route destroyed Gloucester 50 years ago, and we still see the results of that with the I4CP2 lot that has been vacant for too long. And something should be done with it to encourage the city. Fishing industry is what it is, but it can't hold it. It's holding us back too. It's also our history that we don't want to destroy.
So I think we need to figure out how to transition the waterfront. It can't be all or nothing, right? Right now, it's all or nothing. It's either fishing or nothing.
Correct.
And we need to figure out a balance there where waterfront owners, harborfront owners can utilize their property and profit from their property, but also maintain the character of the waterfront. And right now, there's no, like this lot. I believe it's deemed to be just marine industrial, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, is there a compromise that could be made where it could be partly marine industrial and partly something else?
Well, right now it's partly parking lot.
Yeah, well, maybe.
A lot of-
Actually, I think we need parking. So,
Yep.
could it be parking in the front on the street side and something else on the water side?
I don't think we need parking downtown. I think we need parking outside of downtown.
Right.
And some sort of transportation, shuttles, whatever the case may be. That property is too valuable. And I know there have been some proposals of all kinds of things there, and that's another, and I'm not sorry that it's taken this long and it's really, slowed down, because that is the center of town. That's
Correct.
absolutely primary. And to block that off with some, civic center or theatrical place, that to me is not the way to use that property. It should be open, it should be visible right to the harbor, and perhaps, as been suggested before, some sort of boat building, Navy-related enterprise, something marine related there to be open to the public. So to completely turn our backs on the port is not the way to go. We have to figure out something creative and vibrant in moving ahead.
I think that some strides have been made in better public transportation in and around Gloucester. The on-demand K to bus, I haven't used it yet. I'm going to end up using it here in a few weeks when I can't drive for a little while. I think it was a good addition to Gloucester downtown. I know there's the trolley that runs in the summer that I've never used, but I agree with you. I think, again, to kind of my vision of kind of an inclusive, expansive way of bringing downtown together, some sort of public transportation that maybe just runs around that loop all time, like an on-off bus, like in Rome. Yes, I think that's a spectacular idea. And I also agree with you that that particular parcel somehow or another should be developed for the same reason. It's the very center of town. And right now, basically, it's a big gravel parking lot. And something better could be done, I feel.
10 years ago, they did do plans. People submitted plans. And there were some interesting plans that kind of tried to blend them together. It's just have to have smart growth, like the whole city. We can't piecemeal it all.
I think when you're talking about overcrowding and is more tourism and parking, they could, there's been a lot of suggestions, but I always thought they could do something on 128. There's plenty of land in there that, and do a lot and have people park there and shuttle them into town.
Nobody wants to do that.
So-
They wanna,
That's the
everybody
problem.
wants to drive. We're a
The tourists
driving
don't want
I know,
society.
but the
Park
city
and
can't
going.
they can't handle that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we need a better train service
Oh.
to bring people in and out.
Right.
Water shuttle to Boston, the
That's
Cape,
right.
Water shuttle.
you know.
But the other point I wanted to bring up is during the election, there was a lot of talk by several people that were running that Gloucester's working waterfront is very, very important. But I was talking to someone and they told me that follow the money. And all the money is going into tourism, not into the waterfront, into whatever. So,
And that leads to a dying city. We have to be able to support people who live and work here.
mhm.
And just to expect people to come to the beach in the summer or to, come down for trinkets and things like that on Main Street, that's not a viable place. Our city will die a slow death otherwise. So that's not viable, I don't think.
So any other thoughts about what the city should feel like beyond downtown Gloucester? What about the outlying areas? There's
We need smart
Magnolia.
growth, uncontrolled growth without, putting in 20 houses here, 20
Right.
houses there. We
Right.
need better planning on that. They just can't, a developer who has the influence can come in and tear down 30 acres of woods because he knew somebody in the city. We need to have more control. Our Conservation Commission needs to be stronger. Our Planning Board needs to be stronger and not too many special interests in the city.
Jane?
Well said. I
Mhm.
appreciate that.
Yeah. I had put, I wrote it, so I put Gloucester looks pristine and feels welcoming. The skyline and the seaport charm remains quaint and is preserved for the future generations to enjoy. The island, as well as the mainland, has plenty of open space and not overdeveloped. I'm not saying it can't be developed, I just think we gotta not overdevelop. The infrastructure has been improved upon and provided equally to all residents and homeowners. New commercialism prohibits fast food chains, convenience store chains, shopping malls, and high-rises. New housing development is limited to protect wildlife and resources. We have to remember our population is viable for 26.2 square miles of land. So I think we have to have some conservation there. I'm not saying, we need to control what's going on. I was down at Wingersheek the other day, and I saw how much they just wiped out a whole thing of land for housing, and it was just like a shocker. It was a real shocker. So, and the people around there are now putting their houses up for sale. So, I think we need to be a little bit smarter on how I'm not saying, we need to develop, we need housing, but I think we need to do I'm with you, old New England style downtowns and stuff like that, and tourism.
I think you made some points that I'm hoping the microphone, I don't know if you need to lean in more, but I'm hoping the microphone picked up a couple of your points with regard to the kind of industries as far as non-fast food. Is that what you were saying? And
I think we need to have commercialism, but our new commercialism, I think we should limit it. In other words, I'd rather have a mom and pop restaurant versus a Domino's or a McDonald's. I want to have the people that live here own the stores, not franchises, not fast food, not Wendy's, not Burger Kings. I want family-owned,
unique.
cooperative, or businesses here.
So in the last minute and a half we have for this section, several of you mentioned overdevelopment. What does overdevelopment look like?
Well, maybe overdevelopment, if I understand, is just without regard to the environment, without regard to architectural impact. There are places that are very expensive. All the new developments are very expensive, but they're kind of cookie cutter architecture, which completely negates the character of Gloucester. maybe speak to that?
We made we messed up in Gloucester Crossings. You know, a lot of the apartments are good for a lot of people who live there, but the place is dead at night, 9 o'clock. Most malls are starting to turn into multi-use where they have housing. There was supposed to be elderly housing up there for assisted living. That never happened. There was supposed to be a hotel up there. That never happened. The city gave the developer a lot of money, put in a lot of infrastructure for him, but they never followed through. And so, you know,
I think
it
that
could
is
have done better.
I think that's an excellent point too. And the interesting thing is when you look at the cost of the visiting Gloucester coming to one of the hotels, it's not cheap to come here. They're bed and breakfasts. They're beautiful. I've had so many family members come and stay. There's some smaller motels. It's wonderful. But my understanding was there was going to be a Holiday Inn Express, which isn't beautiful, but it has accessibility. Up on Blackburn Circle, up in the industrial park. How that gets developed, to your point, of there needs to be industry as well as tourism. How that gets developed and how that has been developed over the years has been really interesting to watch. I can't say that I've kept way up on it, but just have you guys been by Happy Valley? I mean, it's pumping. There are people there all the time. What types of industry we put there? How does that benefit the city? There's a lot of land back there. Seeing how that develops out and what industries are brought in there and how the city deals with bringing them in and what concessions and how does that impact our workforce, et cetera, which I know we'll talk about later. I think that's important.
We have to protect our watershed there, that industrial park.
Correct.
And
It's
that was a
right
big
on the
step,
watershed.
yeah. Same in West Gloucester too. There's an area they want to develop there, and it probably shouldn't be.
Right.
So it's actually a perfect segue into activity 3. And we are trying to stay to the 15-minute per section plan only because it allows us to get to the entire plan in one sitting. So activity 3 is living and working in Gloucester. Imagine the ideal future for Gloucester residents, housing, and businesses. Now there are several follow-up questions, but I thought I'd just see if you could address that in general. Imagine the ideal future for Gloucester's residents, housing, and businesses. What do you see?
My kids can't buy my house. You know, my realtor told me when I bought it, and I was like, I am so far overpaying for the house I live in. And he said, God's not building any more land currently in West Gloucester. And he was right. So, you know, how I'm not smart enough to know how to address a housing development problem for people that can afford to live in an area as well as affordable housing. I don't know how we make all that work, but it's something that needs to be addressed. I know some of the ideas that have been put on the table that for the development aspects of it. I don't know which one of them might be a viable, honest alternative that just doesn't so overtax the infrastructure or overcrowd the city or its surrounding area that it makes sense.
I'm concerned about the folks that are going to have to turn their single-family homes into multi-family homes in order to stay in Gloucester. I still work, so I have an income, but in a handful of years, I'm not going to work, so I'm going to be on a fixed income. Taxes aren't going down, water rates aren't going down, and that's affecting a lot of people. Not just the people, not just the kids that the people that grew up here can't live here. The people that live here now are going to struggle to stay here once their kind of income stream drops.
I'm right with you.
Anyone else on that? The housing, businesses?
Well, I know the Golden Living Gloucester, I forget the name of the nursing home, it closed and during the, as a result of the pandemic, but also as a result of people working there, having to commute, finding good people who want to come and work at a location. I mean, we're at the end of the line. So unless we provide some adequate housing and we're not going to get the kind of workers at our hospital or in the nursing home. We've got an aging population. You're not there quite yet, but we're getting closer, all of us, to needing more services than fewer services. So that's something to consider.
Truthful, and that comment percolates into every business. I'm a chef. Every business suffers from this, and the pool that we pull from is local. There's not a soul that, I shouldn't say that. Generally speaking, they're not coming from Beverly, Peabody.
Used to be
Danvers.
college students, and,
You know.
Yeah.
Well, there's no transportation into town. The train service isn't catered. It caters to commuters to Boston.
Right.
I used to try to employ somebody, and he couldn't get to
Right.
Gloucester at 7 a.m. or
Right.
7:30 when I start work,
Mhm.
because it didn't cater.
doesn't come.
It was going that way, not into town.
Right.
As far as housing goes, we all want top dollar for rent. We own that paid a lot for a house, or we paid a little for a house, but everybody wants top dollar for rent. We're our own worst enemies, because everybody wants more money. They talk about don't destroy the fort. You destroy it yourself because we make it unaffordable by charging more for ourselves.
And a lot of
Rents,
these McMansions
Come closer.
on the back shore, they're all condos now. A lot of them.
That land is, you need to come a little closer to your microphone, maybe. The land that you're talking about on the back shore that was developed, that was a hotel and is now condos.
Oh, the
Is that what
Mullers
you're
on
talking about?
that. Yeah, the Mullers on that. I used to work for them.
The old Campbell
Yeah.
Soup people owned it. It was a shame they
Yeah.
tore down that other building. Talk about we've torn down too much of historic Gloucester too, in Magnolia, Back Shore, some of the historic old homes.
And they're putting in roads over there. I was driving by Grapevine Road the other day, and there's a new road. And I stopped and looked in there, and there's a huge complex in there. So it's all new.
So again, visioning forward, what do you see, it aspirationally as well as your fears?
So aspirationally, I'd like to see our school system improve from a low scoring, performing school system to a higher performing school system that will allow our students to go to forward their education either in a college, trade, or whatever, but to give them the opportunity to make a better living and be able to afford to live in a more expensive community.
GI does that
Um,
on Main Street.
I don't know if that many Gloucester residents actually participate in that.
Yeah, they do. Kids from high school. They train them. You know.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I
I'm
don't think
just
there's, I
saying
don't,
that-
I don't think there's that many.
Yeah.
I think the number is fairly low of Gloucester students. Is my understanding. But it's like in as far as development goes in Blackburn Circle, if you can get some light industrial up there, that technicians, engineers, those are good paying jobs that people will be able to afford to live here, right? But I think it really starts with education and a broad outlook on how people can earn a living. It's not just one thing, right?
When I grew up, I lived in a very small town in southern Louisiana, and it was when the space shuttle program was first starting, and they ended up putting a tracking station for the space shuttle, as well as technical support for the space shuttle, and the solid rocket booster assembly plants were all right around there. Our little town went from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour. School system got really good, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because now that obviously was all government, it was all NASA. But it was interesting to your point how an industry coming in, if it's technical, can sort of lift all the areas around it, because just that tax revenue and the fact that people with means are coming into the area that help kind of stabilize it is really important.
And of course, we might need to fix the rotary.
Just
But,
a bit. I'm not roads. Let's not talk about roads and water.
I'd just like to, GMGI has been a incredible boost, not only to our downtown, but I think reaching out to young people and training them for technical jobs and so forth. I mean, that's just a stellar place. And what I was thinking about is we should really tap into asking, let's say, for example, GMGI, what was it about doing business here that has suited you? What kind of obstacles have you faced, do you face, to encourage businesses and research companies like yourself? What would you say that Gloucester needs to do to open this up and make it more a viable place? So I think not only with them, but all of the industries, light industries and businesses that we have, we should somehow get some information from them in moving forward. So I think, we're kind of dreaming, we're sort of, I'll speak for myself, kind of a 20th century person, sort of imagining what this is like, but we have people working there. Okay, what do you need? And maybe some data from them would be helpful. And in terms of schools, I would say community
colleges.
I would say neighborhood schools is really where it's at. But that's another topic.
And trade schools too.
And trade
Oh,
schools,
right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
No, I think all those are options, or all those should be encouraged, right?
Yep. Because our students from Gloucester High School, I think, go to Essex for their training. And we should have maybe better opportunities for kids right here.
While I know GMGI is kind of fostering kind of a technical education, right? It is a nonprofit, and as a city, we need to encourage commercial industries that are going to pay their fair share of real estate taxes to lessen the burden on the residents. And I believe I understand that Gloucester's right now, like 25% of Gloucester is residents are over 60, I think was the number. And it's we're part of that, and it's gonna grow more. And so we need to have a tax base that's gonna allow homeowners to not increase their burden all the time.
How about at that far end of the table? Any thoughts on this topic, on this question, living and working in Gloucester?
I think it's a difficult one. I believe our students need a really good education, but I also think that being on an island, if you were born and raised in Gloucester, at some point I just think most kids like to spread their wings and fly. And they want to go. And so what you want to do is try to give them an education where they go, they do what they want, and then they come back. That's what I did. I came back. But they're going to go because the opportunity's there for them. That's the way the world is today, and you got to let them go. And hopefully, some of them do come back and give back to the community. So I think you need to fulfill the jobs that we have now. A lot of the people, they need that educational background. They need the skill sets. We have a lot of commercialism here, a lot of jobs availability. It's like you said, it's a matter of fulfilling them and getting people to stay here.
Look at the traffic on 128 leaving town at 3 o'clock.
Exactly.
You never have traffic
Exactly.
leaving. When you hit Beverly, it's all backed up because they're coming from the industrial parks. We have jobs here.
We do. We have a lot of jobs.
Varian.
Sudbury,
Depends on what
Applied
level of employment you
Materials,
want.
the hospital, Seacoast, Gordon's. We have a lot.
Just don't have enough
YMCA.
workers.
Well,
We
we
have
just-
plenty. We have plenty of
it-
jobs. It's just getting people to stay. And a lot of people prefer not to live on an island. That close. It's kind of a tough. We're at the end of the road. You know what I'm saying? So it's a tough. It's a juggle, I think.
Do you have something you wanted to add? Joan, did you have anything you wanted to add to this
No.
question? Okay, let's go on to activity number 4. Operations and transportation in Gloucester. Imagine the ideal future for Gloucester's city buildings and operations, public services, and transportation options. What would you like to change, and what would you like to see stay the same?
Oh, I'll dive into this one.
Okay.
So all the aspirations on top of it, everything that everybody would like to see, my number one problem, and it's actually not in here, is, and currently it seems like they're starting to try and chew at it, is that we have a very difficult infrastructure. From a power standpoint, from a water distribution standpoint, from a sewage standpoint, you know, just going back over the history of what Gloucester has been through with regards to its sewage treatment. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. It really needs to be bumped up on the priority chain, I feel, because anything that you would want to do, that has to have a good base, a sound base in the city. No place is perfect. Gloucester has some real serious challenges with regard to it. There are, which is my neighborhood, there were things that were allowed to be done in the past that have seriously bad repercussions right now, that can't get addressed or very difficult to get addressed. I think that from a city operation standpoint, I think for a while, I think Greg brought it up too, the focus wasn't on our infrastructure. The focus wasn't on the business of government taking care of the 26 whatever miles of land that we encompass. I think that needs to be prioritized, which would also include educational system. In that, my kids were in the Gloucester educational system up to and through O'Malley, and then they chose to not go to Gloucester High for various reasons. But I think when my mind thinks of infrastructure, it's all city services encompassed. So education, water, sewer, electrical grid, you name it, that's city. That's what should be a priority for us. And I think to be able to do any of this and all of this, that should be a number one priority for the city. That was my soapbox, I'm sorry.
That's excellent, thank you.
Well, I'd like to see the city take care of itself better, just in general, aesthetically. That's my background, is natural resources and the landscapes, and I just get disgusted driving around the city and seeing how dirty it is. Our trees are falling down, our landscape. The only reason the boulevard looks good is Generous Gardeners. Stagefoot Park was a mess all summer long because of construction. We don't take care of our trees. We don't
That's a big
take
thing,
care
the
of
trees,
our
they're cutting
streets
them
are
down.
dirty.
They're cutting them
There's
down.
the care of it is not complete. We don't have enough workforce for doing it anyways. But we could do a better job of just taking care of. We're a tourist town. We should be a lot cleaner. The boulevard should have been paved for the 400th. We can do a lot better in that aspect.
And you talked about the trains a while back, how inconsistent or their schedule is, or its schedule is not conducive to bringing working force into Gloucester and so forth. It's just a commuter rail and inconsistently operating. And, you know, the bridges across, or I forget how to characterize where that bridge is, but it was under construction
Right,
or
the railroad
renovation, the railroad bridge for a long time, and
Over
people were
here,
being
here.
bussed. You know, that needs to change.
Not helpful.
Yeah.
That needs to be improved. And I think in your infrastructure, I don't know, I didn't hear you say anything about connectivity, but
Same, yes.
you know, it's very inconsistent, and that shouldn't be.
Well, the trains are what state is it? It's pretty much.
It's MBTA. though.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have a say in that.
Yeah.
You don't have much of a say in that.
No. We used to drive, one of my sons who went to Emerson downtown lived home because he didn't for whatever reason. And it was totally inconvenient for him to get on the bus in Gloucester, or on the train in Gloucester. We used to drive him to Beverly. so he could get on the train in Beverly because the schedule
Right.
made so much more sense. Otherwise, he's spending an extra 2 or 3 hours a day trying to make it back to
Right.
Gloucester. So we just gave up, and I would just take him in the morning. But yeah, again, we don't have much say in the MBTA. But you're right.
And yet they want us to
Right.
do a rezoning
Yeah.
to suit their purposes and so forth.
Very
So
good point.
it's got to work,
Mhm.
together.
As far as city buildings go, it seems like the city rents space
An
around
awful
the
lot of
city,
space.
and perhaps there should be some more shared spaces within the city. Like, why does like when we were in high school? We were in high school together. There were what 1,800 people at that high school, something like that. Or whatever. It was huge. It was a huge school, 1,600 people, and now there's 800. So that means there's a lot of extra space there. And what are they doing with it? Are they most likely, well, I don't want to I was going to make a sarcastic thing, but I'm not going to do that. But there's
Go for
spaces. No, there's probably a wing of the school that's just going to be left to rot, so then they can decide to knock it down. But anyway, there's probably more opportunities for shared spaces within the cities. I think they have to be more open. I think, while we want to be a tourist destination, we're not very friendly to tourists, and we don't make it. There's no infrastructure for tourists.
Exactly.
I was in Rockport 2 days ago, and within a half a mile, they have 2 permanent year-round restrooms for visitors.
Right.
Gloucester has a couple of porta potties.
No, we have, I volunteer at the visitor center, and there are restrooms there.
Year-round?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
okay,
they close in, they close in December.
Well, no, I know, but it's like Gloucester's a great place to visit in the wintertime too.
Right.
And
Right.
and if we could maybe generate more traffic into the city, into our restaurants, to keep our restaurants open.
Right.
If we were more welcoming in that standpoint, with some parking too, or some level of ways to get around the city.
I was just in Rockport this week too, and all of their parking was covered.
Was
'cause
free.
It's free parking.
For the holiday.
Right.
Now, do I want to? I don't necessarily want to be Gloucester to become bearskin neck, but there's some
Heading that
positives
way.
out of that.
It's heading that
I
way.
want to chime in on this one because I'm at the meetings every Tuesday. My biggest thing is infrastructure. Our infrastructure really needs to be improved upon. There are no, they want you to have less traffic, but there's no bicycle path. I come out of my house, there's no sidewalks, there's no drainage, there's no bicycle paths. I can't walk to Wangashig Beach. I can't walk to Lobster Land. I get picked off by truck drivers. And it's like, let's see if I can pick off this person. I
that was
swear,
part of mine
it's
too.
really bad.
That's a
And
very-
I mean, and then you have one sidewalk at the end of 128 on Concord Street
Right.
that the state put in, and it goes nowhere.
Really?
It's like the biggest joke in the world. It's like they've repaired it twice, and it's like, where does it go? A student can't even walk to West Parish from Annie's Variety to they can't even walk. There's no exercise. You're not promoting health. You're not promoting exercise. And then you're talking about gas and gas emissions, but you don't help. There's no bicycle paths. You can't bike. Where do you bike in Gloucester? I would love to get on a 10-speed or even an electric bike and go, but it's
bike
too
paths.
it's
Oh,
so
oh,
unsafe
yeah.
to go downtown or
Oh, yeah.
anywhere on
West
or
Gloucester.
we should have access to the coastline, the waterfront, the downtown, and the beaches. We should be able to walk. We should have a bicycle. There should be some bicycle. Even what if we have city-owned bikes where you do those rental things?
Mhm.
Promote it. We don't promote it. And the trolleys could be hop on, hop off. That's the way I look at it. We aren't inviting. I have to drive everywhere because there's no other way for me to get around anywhere. There really isn't. I can't walk.
Some of the MBTA housing that they're recommending will be under the assumption that those people will not have cars. And that's
what kind of world do they live in?
Right.
So-
But
West
still, it'd
Gloucester,
be
where
nice to
you
be able to
walk-
bike to Good Harbor or bike to Stage 4 Park. I go and walk, I walk 3 miles a day at Stage 4 Park. I walk. I have to drive there because it's unsafe. I'm not gonna drive, I'm not gonna ride a bike.
Well, that's why I mentioned the roads are overgrown. In our neighborhood, we can't ride in West Gloucester because the brush overgrows the road.
You can't
No
walk.
sidewalks.
You can't walk. It's
So if you-
scary.
Yeah. If you're gonna ride a bike, you're gonna ride it in the middle of the road. And I have a big truck and I'm
It's
scared
scary
of you,
because
worried.
Scary.
it's
Yeah.
very
We
scary.
ride our bikes from West Gloucester all the time to downtown. We don't have there's not even a breakdown lane,
Yeah.
so that you have
Mhm.
that space, and it is one of my sisters won't ride their bikes anymore at all because it's so terrifying along Essex
Yeah, I
Ave. And it
won't.
is a state highway, so.
You can't even push a carriage. I mean,
Right.
so it's just not very friendly. It's, you know,
I know in some communities, recently, because I've watched them all develop this, and I don't know if Gloucester has any abandoned rail service, but a lot of them have been making the abandoned rail lines.
Yeah. Only in
Into-
Essex.
That's it. I was like, I don't know if there are any up here,
Yeah.
but
I
We
think
could
there's
abandon
one.
it, we could just shut it off and tell them not to come and
Yeah.
to Gloucester and
No,
just
that's
turn
all
it
right,
into a
we're good.
Gloucester trail.
yeah, I was afraid of that. But I thought I'd ask somebody that knows more.
But
Than me.
we also don't want roads widened because we like the rural characteristic of West Gloucester. By your house, that's
But driving
Country
to
road.
driving to Wingisheek Beach, that road is very narrow.
it
Yeah.
is. It
And if you
is.
get years ago before they did the beach parking, I don't know if I'm sure you're aware of it. I mean, there were times when the fire department
Couldn't get
through
down
there. People
Before
were
they
buying
did
boats to get into town.
before they did the pre-purchase tickets, the line used to go past Annie's,
Yeah,
which means that if I left my house,
Mhm.
I couldn't get home. I would be
Right.
waiting in
Yes.
that line to be able to
Yes.
get to my street.
right.
So I just made a point of not leaving in the morning, just waiting till
Right.
it filled up.
And then now, if you watch, the people park very early down at Thompson Street.
They do. That fills up
Reservation, super
constantly.
early, so no one later on can bike or use the green belt because they all park there. And then they get their coolers out and they walk to Wingisheek
Really?
with their coolers, their kids,
Oh my
and it's
goodness.
horrifying. Like you
Yeah.
almost get hit
If you go
If
out
I
there
go
at
to
7 in the
Marshall's,
morning, it'll be packed.
because they don't have parking reservations. So then, if you
Right.
show up there by foot, they have to let you in. So they make so it's a parade, and it's really scary when you're trying to like go down to Marshall's food stand or anywhere because they're on the street with their coolers, 2, 3, and their kids
That's
in
a long
tow,
walk.
and
There's a long
a
it's
couple-
very scary.
A couple miles. It is.
Yeah.
Easy.
So let's talk about water. We only have another 2 minutes in this section. Water access, transportation-wise. Do you have any ideas or thoughts?
There used to be
There used to
a
be a water
service
taxi
that
to
went to
Cape Cod
Beverly,
and
Cape Cod.
Martha's Vineyard
Right.
and
I
in
thought they
Boston.
were going to bring it back. I heard something. They said they were talking about.
a shuttle to the city would be nice, but it wouldn't.
it'd be nice to have boat
If
ramps
it's not
and
financially
kayaks.
viable.
Right.
People could kayak from down, if they had places you could put your kayaks, even boat ramps down the harbor, and then
Well,
go
they're
down a
adding.
rack and go to
They've added a
downtown.
lot of docks
Mhm.
off of the State Fish Pier. They've got quite a few actually.
Jet skis.
There's a shuttle that goes from Gloucester over to Rocky Neck.
Right.
I think and maybe that's only on Thursday evenings when they have the sort of cultural.
No, they run.
Consistently?
I think pretty much every day
Hmm.
in the season.
That
in
helps.
the night season.
We used to take it all the time.
You can buy a pass.
Yeah, it's nice.
The access to the water goes along hand in hand with parking. If you don't have a place to park, then how do you
Right.
get to the water?
Yeah.
Right.
But we have landings and places, and
Mm-hmm.
it's possible. More moorings for residents. We don't have. I can't get a mooring if I wanted to get a boat.
Forget that.
Oh, you can get on the list.
Yeah, I need a list.
Or it might be nice to have
I'm
a
on a
water
water
shuttle to the Hammond Castle Museum and a water shuttle to the Sleeping McCann House.
Yeah.
Well, that's dockage is an issue on that, but
You
possible.
know? Well, and to the Annisquam Yacht Club, if we use the waterway and less traffic. We could use hot air balloons too. Self-propelled
It is
jetpacks
parasite.
to the beach.
A lot hot air in the city.
Parachuting.
We don't want we don't want gas ones, so battery operated jetpacks go
But
to
you
the beach.
know, in fact,
something.
Jane, you've got a point, because really, transportation is really important, and I'm having trouble imagining what transportation 20 years down the road could look like. And it could be hovercraft or whatever. You know, you jump on something and before you know
Well,
it.
they have them now.
Right.
I think Cape Cod has a
No kidding.
hovercraft, yeah.
But I'm thinking, even downtown, let's say. So my big thing is all of this beautiful land being taken up by cement,
Right.
you know, asphalt parking lots. Somehow, if we could move the parking outside of town, have really good, consistent transportation into town and out, that would really help us to keep the core of the city viable and not always having to, you know, wrestle in and out with all of this traffic. So,
That's a tough one.
it is.
It's a beautiful vision, though.
Because you can
Oh,
only,
thank you.
you
I
can
love that vision. I love that vision.
Finally,
Okay.
some vision.
Yeah, I know, that's a lovely vision, I like that. Okay, activity 5, protecting and adapting Gloucester. Once again, imagine the ideal future for Gloucester's historic and natural places and ecosystems, as well as the city's ability to adapt to climate change. What would you like to change? What would you like to see stay the same? Which historic resources are restored to have greater protection? What types of natural places and ecosystems are protected, restored, and strengthened?
we
Okay,
can't
as
stop,
you're still
we
on
can't stop the ocean. The waves are just gonna come in, you know.
How could the natural spaces be improved upon to increase community use and enjoyment for people of all ages?
Natural spaces,
Well,
like
Our parks.
parks or.
I mean, maybe not expansion or parks or anything like that, but just understanding that they're there, or advertising that they're there, or just making it public knowledge. Jane mentioned 5 places that I don't know about.
At least.
I know all the
At least.
about-
No,
yeah.
but you know, so,
Yeah.
and I know quite a few places, but I don't know at least 5 of them on your list. And
Oh, the green belts.
the Greenbelt
There's
places,
10,
yeah.
10 that are publicly
Yeah.
opened.
And
the largest
I'm
is
I'm
Thompson.
gonna guess that a lot of people don't know about that.
I think this hits on what I had said earlier. So if you look at the Appalachian Trail, they have the Conservancy, and they maintain that all 2,300 miles. They maintain it. They make sure that it is monitored for, that it's being used properly. Gloucester has some amazing hiking loops. Dogtown, Ravenswood, behind where we live is stunning.
Thompson Street.
Thompson, but even that city-owned parcel that's next to the quarry, there's like 3 parcels the city owns back there. These are stunningly beautiful areas that, again, if there's some sort of a conservancy that can be put together like Greenbelt that is doing it, and they've done, I think, spectacular work in acquiring the properties and in certain instances developing them for better access and public use. I think that would make me a happy man. Like, they've got some parcels that are gorgeous, beautiful places.
Our flora is being attacked by invasive species. Our ash trees are dying, our beech trees are dying.
Yep.
Our oak trees are all died from gypsy moths, as you know. And it's, for guys in the tree business, it's good and bad. But we need to come up with a plan to take care of these trees and not, the Seaside Cemetery in Lanesville, because they did not spray the trees, and nobody likes to spray chemicals, but they're gone. 100-year oak trees are gone because they did not spend $100, and then they had to spend thousands to remove them. We're not proactive. The city of Gloucester only reacts to any problem. Oh, you got a water leak? We'll fix it. Well, let's fix it beforehand.
Yeah, I was astounded to find out that Manchester has a tree person. They
I know him personally.
check thing, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
We
very,
actually have one in Gloucester as well. His
Yeah,
name is
really?
Mike Hale. He
Yeah.
is our
oh,
tree.
well, he's, yes, Mike
But
Hills.
he's
No, he is actually
He's
the
the
tree.
tree,
Really?
tree warden.
which
Yeah,
is
he's
con-
the
which
tree
is
warden.
conflict of
Chief
interest.
Crooked
We're
Bottle
we're
Warden.
supposed to have a tree warden, I believe.
Yeah.
He is it.
Yeah, you're supposed to have an independent tree person.
Right.
But we have no tree budget for that matter. We had a forestry bucket truck, which they just let rot away. They never used it. They bought it and never used it.
A what? I'm sorry.
A bucket truck to work on trees. Then they bought another one that wasn't sufficient to do the job. You know, we need to look at that more, because we're gonna lose our woodlands, and then we're gonna have a forest fire, because in the Thompson Street, it's loaded with dead
Deadwood,
trees.
standing deadwood
Right.
everywhere back there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we need a conservancy, like from Central Park, there's a private conservancy that takes care of things, but then that's money. That's donations.
Right.
You said something about the beaches being taken over by the Audubon Society.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the piping
I am,
plovers?
I am.
Mhm.
They,
Oh, yeah, that's,
they've, each year they've taken more of Good Harbor Beach,
yeah. But
and they're now taking a section of Wingershik Beach, and it seems like they're taking it for longer periods of time. Initially, I thought it was just for the hatching, but now it seems like it's beyond that. And if we don't stop doing that, if we don't stop them, they're gonna take the whole beach. Both of these beaches.
They're
And
not
then they're gonna go,
endangered.
then they're gonna go to Plum Cove, and then they're gonna go to Niles, and,
they're not endangered. I mean,
but, well.
down in Florida, they say there's like 10,000 of them down there, and they, you know, I guess, I don't know if they migrate up here, but,
It's a concern.
Yeah.
I'm a beach person, and I know a lot of
Right.
Gloucester people live here, and they love the beaches,
Mhm.
and the beaches are being taken away. And I'm not anti-plover. I just
Right.
don't think. I think it's just like the doing a broad swipe of stuff and say, oh, we got to close the beach,
Right.
this section of beach because of this. And
between closing they close the,
But we have to protect our wildlife
Yeah.
too. We have
Right.
to take
Yeah.
care
But-
of that. So
but,
we're
you
gonna,
know,
we're gonna have to give up a little bit.
But-
We've
but-
destroyed so much, we need to protect it
but the
too.
coyotes don't know how to read the sign.
No, they don't.
Right.
And there's a lot of coyotes on Good Harbor Beach and probably
Mhm.
Wingershik as well. They don't know how to read the signs.
There's a lot of humans that can't read that sign.
Yeah, I know.
You know, we're our,
But it's just, I'm just looking for some balance, or it's just going to be a preserve, and that we won't be able to have access to.
I'm wondering about the increased population of coyotes as well. And how are we going to live sustainably with growing wildlife population? We've screwed up so much. They're just encroaching because we're taking the lands away from them. So
they've
that's,
become domesticated
mhm,
more.
yeah.
Wait till the black bears come in.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering too. When's that gonna happen?
They're getting there.
Yeah, they're on their way.
They don't. The coyotes don't have any predators.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Until
They're
the black
they're
bears come,
They're the
right?
top of the food chain.
Just the other night, I came home from work and it was late. It was about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I backed into my driveway, parked, got out, and I wasn't paying attention. It was late. I walk out and I go to take a left to go my thing, and trotting just about right next to me was one of the largest coyotes I've ever seen in my life. And he didn't pay me any attention. He just went about. I just stopped and he went about his business. But yeah, more and more now, more and more.
I've seen less and less of them over
Really?
in East Gloucester.
Yeah.
We used to have them underneath the deck. So,
Yeah, we're getting them.
But I mean, I think that's an important consideration too, is adapting to changes in our wildlife and in our flora as well. You know, all the invasive species, we have to be proactive with regard to just living sustainably, living properly.
Plus, we were laughing a little bit, just to reference something that we were talking about before we started about city flooding and just certain paving projects, one by us, the ramifications of paving that part of Thompson Street and what it did to Concord Street just by creating a river that now goes to Concord Street, and it's happened a few different places now. I think like we are all talking about, just a bit of planning and thought needs to go in before they put in a road with a curb that just it is pretty amazing to watch.
Yep.
It was bad before, it's worse now.
Yeah.
So I feel for whoever that house is at the bottom, right on Concord Street, I feel.
Well, they had to put, the city had to put up
A
a
whole
thing, so now it
berm,
goes
yeah.
down into the old drive-in.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
know them.
Well,
They weren't happy.
all developments now are supposed to have drainage
Yeah.
built into their development. You can't just let your gutters run down onto the ground. You can't put a road in without a drainage plan.
Right.
But again, the city just decided to pave something and not have a plan. But now they're gonna dig it up, because they said they're gonna fix our part of our road
Yeah.
and put a water line in.
Because we kept complaining.
No.
I want to chime in here though on this because I think it's important, this whole area on protecting and adapting Gloucester. And I had put that we need to promote alternative modes of transportation, walking, biking, kayaking. So we need sidewalks and benches, bicycle paths and locking stations, public boat ramps and storage. I thought it would be important if we provided composting and public land use. We could have community vegetable gardens, as well as rooftop gardens. I don't know why we don't have community gardens. They have them in Danvers, and they're
Yes,
They're
we have
very
a couple.
popular.
We have a couple.
um,
Burnham's Field and what's the other one?
Wormsfield is a big one.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
called,
I didn't know we had
Our
those.
landscape is pretty tough for a lot of that too,
Right.
though. You know,
Yeah.
we're a rock.
Yeah.
Right.
We're all rock.
But
We
I'm
don't have
talking,
big
I'm
fields
talking
and
some of our
farms.
public lands that we could use.
Yeah, it's tough.
That, and then the other thing is, I think the city needs to become more aware of protecting some of our species. We have there's a piece of property across the street from me that got bought, and it is wetlands. It has been wetlands. It has pink lady slippers, which are protected plant species, and vernal pond animals. It had spotted salamanders and wood frogs. And this company is a landscaping company, and they couldn't perk, and they keep going in there and they're harvesting the rocks, the granite, and they're wiping it out. I have document after document after document, photographs gone to the city, and they tell me there's nothing we can do about it. It's private property. So if they ruin it, if it ruins the ecosystem, which goes down past Annie's Variety, under Annie's Variety, down the drive-in theater, down by Sudbase to the estuaries, over by Lobsterland and the Ospreys, then we'll do something about it after it's destroyed. So they're not being proactive. They said once it's destroyed, then we can make them put the trees back. And I'm like, you can't put them. Seriously, I have documents this thick. And I even called the state EPA. I have documents saying, sorry, there's nothing we can do. And I think they should. It should, the city needs to be more proactive I mean, it's been declared wetlands. Greg knows that. We've been in meetings after meetings.
When Dave had it, they made
As a
him
matter of
clean it
fact,
up.
it was Kelly's family owned it.
So one of the protecting and adapting Gloucester, that is part of this visioning of if they're saying that we can't protect it, what is the solution for protecting and adapting Gloucester for invasive species, endangered species, not just animals, but also flora?
Invasive developers,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
local and not local.
So, private, so you have private landowners, that's what we're hearing, right? The private landowners who sell the land, or you're able to do whatever they want with that private land. Are you saying the city should come in and do what?
Well, I guess,
Well, they can always look and see, this is a vernal pond. I mean, we have Cape Ann vernal pond. This is a vernal pond, you can't touch this. And then they've actually diverted the water. They've wiped out all the pink slippers. They're gone.
so
They're gone. It used to be loaded.
I went, I recently did some construction on my house, and I went to get a building permit. And in that process of doing that and making sure everything was done correctly, you have to still go to the Conservation Commission, and they click and tell you if you're doing this, that, or the other thing. And while I'm a big proponent of private property, like everybody says, Wild West, Gloucester's Wild West, the city should be able to click, just like they did with me, and know whether or not there's something protected on a person's private property. And because you can't do things willy-nilly. And
Except for you're a developer.
yeah, well, that's a whole other, that's another ballgame. which is exactly
Right.
how, or you either are a big developer, or in our case, it just kind of got done. In our world, stuff just kind of got done, and now we're stuck with it instead of any sort of oversight.
They moved the stream and stuff, which is a natural stream. They moved it, and they've made such a mess in there that a lot of the trees are dying. And actually, there was one that had an eagle's nest in it that just came down because they've killed the trees.
So in our last 2 minutes for this section, with regard to climate change, do you foresee as a future, again, 10 years out, how are we going to, how would you like to see Gloucester prepare for climate change, for the very large sea rise level we're expecting?
Well, they're already trying to protect the sewer plant. And then the high school, they put up a wall. I don't know how it's going to stop it.
It's a
What did they do with the
Yeah.
sewer plant? Did they raise it up?
They put a wall around it.
Yeah, it's like a 8-foot wall
Oh,
around it. And it's,
so by the
how
high
do you
school,
protect Main Street?
by the high school, they
Roger
put a
Street?
big wall up,
Yeah.
so the water will come down there and then it'll go in
So when they
by
put
the,
the wall,
by the train bridge.
yeah, they put the wall along by by the high school.
Right.
It's just going to go around it.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
just-
understand how that's going to work.
It's-
We should actually be working on what about the cut bridge? The city and state needs to figure out how they're going to, before that bridge falls in, we're only going to have one way in and out of the city because that is pretty bad. That's what the city should be
Well,
getting
they
on the
just,
state
didn't they
for.
just,
Didn't they just do something
they
with
just
that?
did a lot of
I
steel
think,
work.
I think there's a plan to replace
To
it.
replace the
Yeah.
cut, right. I thought I read that in the paper.
There's only talk.
Oh, okay.
Only talk.
Not a
Because
plan.
one of the plans, they probably should have taken that house that just was sold so they could have more area to work. Problem with replacing the cut, it's a tough one.
Okay, let's go to activity 6, ways to play in and experience Gloucester. Let's talk about recreational offerings and arts and cultural spaces and events. What would you like to see recreational places wise? How do arts and cultural programs enrich Gloucester's community? And what types of gathering places exist in the city? And what types of amenities should these spaces have? So
This-
let's
they're
talk about
huge.
recreation first, or
Recreation and arts and cultural.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a plethora of places and activities all over. I don't know.
I would like to see them utilize the Henry Fritz Lane house. I think they only use it for storage. I would love that to be open to the public and utilize that land.
In the bathroom.
Oh, they do
In the
the,
bathroom.
yeah.
And when we do need some more public
They do the
bathrooms.
There is
concerts
one
there,
there.
right, in the
Yeah.
summer.
Yeah, but I think she's talking about the building itself, right?
The
Yeah.
building, I don't know, I just think it's such a cool building. It'd be great to be able to go inside.
I think
We
there's
used to
office
live in it,
space on
too.
the first floor. I'm not sure if it's Maritime Gloucester, but
it's the adventure.
it's the
Schooner
adventure.
Yeah.
But we
Two
could have some
floors.
of his paintings and maybe
Yeah.
what he saw and maybe a little cafe and a visitor center, bathroom, and then you could open up the grounds with picnic tables and stuff because not everyone goes to State Farm Park. They want to
Oh,
be.
we have the Flintstone picnic tables there.
Yeah.
I just think it's an underutilized historical site. If I wanted to pick something, as well as City Hall. I mean, that top floor, that stage and that balcony. I mean, if we revitalize that, that's underutilized too.
We have good arts and culture in the city, you know, we
Mhm.
did the Cape Ann Museum.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we have music events going on, should do more music events. The Blues Festival is great. Should incorporate a little bit, have Main Street embrace that. I go to Rockland, Maine's Blues Festival, and they have 5-10 times as many people attending that. And then also the Main Street will shut down and have a lot of music on the street it just opens up for that blues festival. We had the radio station did one a couple of years ago in Stage Shore Park. Place was, never seen so many people there. GLX, the river,
That was
which
great.
they now do in Newburyport and Salisbury, I guess, this year. So should get them back.
That's a popular event.
My father's a watercolor artist before he passed, and he used, when he would come up and visit, him and my mother and myself would make a point of going out on Rocky Neck, looking at all the different art colonies, going out to Rockport. He was always impressed by the level of art that was here. And I still like going out there. I still do it. But again, it's that sort of, I consider also, maybe that's not considered so much ecotourism, but a part of the whole, it's part of the whole landscape that Gloucester can do. But if you just look at what is available and offered, from scuba diving, some of the best cliff scuba diving around. We already have a whale watching industry, which is a whale watching industry. But there are lots of other areas that can be brought in to a certain amount of synergy to be able to coordinate these different things together, so that when you come to Gloucester, sort of like the Freedom Trail down in Boston's North End, sort of, you can't walk there now because of the roads, but sort of here are some cultural centers, and here are walking trails, and here are aquatic activities that you can do. And I know that sometimes I can see it in the Cape Ann guide
Right.
comes out.
Yeah.
It's in there sometimes. I just think if you segmented it and made it a thing on its own, it would become standalone. And it might attract, and the type of people that it attracts are the people who are not interested in trashing something, they're interested in the conservation aspect of it. So if you're a hiker or a backpacker or a rock climber, your number one goal is leave no trace. That's a mantra that backpackers live by. Same thing with the rock climbers. Once you've established routes, everybody tries to maintain it as pristine as possible. And I think you would get a lot of support in some of the concerns that a community might have by fostering people to come for those activities. So
Windjammer Fleet, like in Maine,
Yeah.
and the Windjammer Fleet, the cruise ships coming in are good, bringing people in. I don't think we've been known as a welcome port for transient sailors. Not quite sure, we do now have a shuttle boat, don't we? And a pump out boat. But do we have enough dockage for transient sailors? So that brings in no traffic that way when they come on a cruise ship, even though cruise ships sometimes bus them to other places, could bus them to Rockport, but we need to, again, protect this history in our parks. You can't keep tearing down our historic buildings. We can't put up monstrosities. We have to think about aesthetics of the city.
We have quite a few cultural centers. I'm thinking of Rocky Neck Cultural Center,
Mm-hmm.
and let's not forget the Gloucester Writers Center. That also attracts
Yeah.
people with. They have wonderful programs all year long. The Manship Residency Program over in Lanesville have done a beautiful job refurbishing the Manship properties, and they invite artists for extended periods to come and to utilize the space. That's a wonderful opportunity. So I think we have a lot of pockets of cultural vibrancy that's very important for us to highlight and to support. And also the shuttle that we talked about earlier gets you over to Rocky Neck, which is really nice because parking is really limited over there. But it's also a wonderful way of just engaging with this spit of land and walking maybe to Niles Beach or enjoying something to eat over there.
I think it'd be a good idea. I mean, tourism-wise, we have a lot of tourism, but we don't have any guided tours, like a 3-day tour or a 4-day tour. Like if I go to, when I go to, say, Portugal, I do a 10-day tour with Travolga. And I don't have to plan anything. I just pay for it and go, and I have a ball. Because a lot of people, they don't know how to plan, you know? And if you could do like hotel with your breakfast, if we set up the city itself to have 2-day tours or 5-day tours, and then also, we could also do where you can hire your own private tours, you know, a tour guide. I don't see that in the city.
Well,
I
that-
just think it would be really worth
that-
looking into.
That needs to be, I actually did that business for a while, but I went out of town to do it as
You
a
know?
tour guide. But I went to DC and New York. But when the cruise ships come in, you would sell your tour. You want a local, you want a Cape Ann tour, give you a tour of the dog towns. So you need a lot of entrepreneurs about that. Lynn Parisi worked on that a little bit.
But I just think it's worth looking into, you know, because
Yeah.
like when I went to Greece, I did a 2-week tour. It's like, just show me the highlights. I don't want to have to look. I don't want to have to go to the visit. I just show me the highlights and get me. I want my breakfast, take me. Have a good day, you know?
So those are potential future, when we talk about
Yeah.
what types of businesses do we see in
Yeah.
the future in Gloucester, these are good ideas for people to create and develop, not necessarily run by the city, obviously, but by,
Right, and then also allow, I don't ever see anyone advertising in Gloucester to do individual tours, like a private tour. You know,
Yeah,
like
there-
when I went to South
there was a
America,
woman-
I
there
went
was a
to
woman
Chile and I
last
did a
year.
3-day,
Here.
the guy was phenomenal. I hired him just
Yeah.
for my husband and I, we had a blast.
There was a woman that did tours around.
Marietta.
I think, yeah.
Right. But I mean, if there's a group, you know, that's online,
Right, right.
that are actually qualified too, you
Well,
know?
Cape Ann Museum offers tours
Yeah.
of downtown, and I know Rocky Neck is also offering tours of historic locations
Mhm.
over there. So it's possible, not to the extent that you're
Right.
talking about, but I also know that the cruise ships, they have tour directors that know the areas, and
Right.
then they start, you know, they take their clients around.
Well, they would hire a shore person to work in Gloucester. They would, like Lynn Parisi would coordinate tours, or they get on
Right.
the bus and they go to Boston and go that way. Or,
Because you would include your lunch, you know, you say, we're gonna go here, you know, this is your time, we're gonna have time frames. Most people like their stuff structured, you know, so just get on the bus and go. Don't worry about, you know, lunch here, and then we're gonna go to the Hamlin Castle Museum, and then we're gonna do this, and then it's free time here. You know, that's the way I like to travel.
So, you know, what you're talking about here, what we've been talking about here is interesting to a small group of people. What about the larger population of the city, the 30-year-olds that might not be interested in art at this time in their life? Or think, like, how do we make it such that people stay and enjoy living here throughout their lives, and not just taking the kids to soccer or hockey or anything like that, but other things?
I think there's so much to do on the weekends in the summer here that you can't make a decision.
Right. Yeah. You're right.
I think everything is. There was a beer festival besides the music festival and the bands on Sunday, and you know there's the crafts sale on the boulevard. It's endless. I think there's lots to do.
So as we move into our winter months, however, with our full-time residents, during these months, do you see the same plethora of options that we have in the summer months? Because we do want to have activities that entertain the people who actually live here year-round.
I think it gets tough. I used to joke with my wife. I said, there's nothing on the face of the planet that will get me to drive over the bridge in summer. Just because the traffic is just such a nightmare. I will just go up the line if I have to get something. But as soon as leaf season happens, then I'll start driving into the city again. So we used to always frequent Gloucester way more often in the winter than we did in the summer. But it's sort of like what Greg says, the whole place kind of folds itself up at 9 o'clock, you know.
tumbleweeds.
But the cut will change that, because they have quite the they have quite the operation started. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and all the other restaurants too.
Yeah.
The Rum Line has good
Rum
music,
Line.
and
They do.
so people just have to. It all depends on what you know. Some people want to sit home and watch a movie. Some people want to go out and take a walk in the winter, walk the boulevard constantly.
The more availability there is of stuff open later, the better. If you're 30-something with young kids, you're probably not going out at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday night.
Yeah.
But having the availability to do it, I think there was a period of time in Gloucester in the recent past where there just wasn't enough going on to make it worthwhile, so that was kind of dragging everything down. I think there's more availability now than there has been in several years. So.
That's good. All right. In the last section, was talking about the reflection, just identifying tensions and synergies. Because comprehensive plans contain many different elements, as in housing, transportation, and open space, there can be tensions between elements as well as synergies, or ways they work together. It is important to recognize when hopes for one element conflict or work against hopes for another element, in order to brainstorm solutions to balance competing goals. Of all the things that we've talked about tonight, have you noticed any synergies or tensions and conflicts?
What I've heard repeatedly is that we don't have the infrastructure for really moving forward with a comprehensive plan. And I would add to that we need outside expertise, urban planners looking at models of coastal communities to understand how they react to climate change and climate mitigation, the changes in the flora and fauna, how do they deal with that. We need more than just, concerned citizens who are having, a lively conversation. We need expertise, and not expertise that's hired by the city or connected in some way to development, or independent, thoughtful, knowledgeable people to guide us as we move forward. I appreciate this, but we really can't be making mistakes, because those mistakes are very long-lasting and very deep, so.
We can't continue to make the mistakes
Correct.
we've been mistaken. We need to be more progressive
Yeah.
and not, some people say we're backwater. And Gloucester is too much about itself, thinking we're Gloucester and we can take care of our own, and we're not doing a good job of that.
When we talk about these independent people, Pippi, are you talking about, do you think that we have that capability in Gloucester? Do you think we have that expertise within our residents of Gloucester? Do you think we have to go to outside, off the island, independent resources?
Well, actually, when we talk about conservation and how certain things are happening in the ecosystem, and I don't know who's working for whom and who is paying attention to the important stuff. I'm not sure that I trust our government, and because too much is happening sort of under the rug, or somebody's. I don't get it, and I don't understand it, and I don't trust it. So I would think expertise outside of the city, outside of our environment.
I think the way that was just articulated is 100% correct. Because I think probably the biggest thing that I don't trust is us to get it done. Because there are so many competing interests involved, and there should be. We're all individuals and we all have our own agendas and our own likes and desires. There's so many competing agendas on this, and to her point, you have no idea what's going on, generally speaking. Conversations that happen in the street, and one says something and I go, I had no idea that happened. And while everything is definitely public and it's on the city website, digging through that maze is a full-time job with research assistants. And trying to look at every committee and every agenda to try and figure out wetland information or what's going on with water improvements, what's going on at the sewer station, what, it's beyond my scope to sit on the internet for 15 hours a day and figure out. I wholeheartedly agree that some expertise that is not connected in any way to our town, and I wouldn't say this is just unique to us. I think this is, generally speaking, any long-standing town is similar to take what's happening now, take a look clinically at everything that's going on, and make recommendations to a 10-year plan that includes everything, which means that if everybody's upset about it, it probably is a fairly good plan because nobody's going to agree to everything.
We just had a plan 10 years ago and they put it on the shelf because some outsider did it and they don't know what Gloucester needs because Gloucester thinks they know what we need. And look where we are. We have issues because we think we can take care of it ourselves. There's plenty of people in the city of Gloucester with the professional expertise, but they get shot down and they don't get elected that can take care of things. We need a newspaper that reports on what's going on in the
Really?
city. We just had a tax increase. I bet you most citizens don't know that
Big one.
because it wasn't in the paper enough, and it was in Saturday's paper when it finally happened. Who reads Saturday's paper? And it wasn't the reporter's fault. He said, I don't know why my editor put it on Saturday's paper. Nobody reads it. Nobody reads the paper. I read it online, but
Manchester on a decrease.
yeah.
So, if I may,
Please.
talk about potential tension points, right? So we talk about development. We'll say reasonable development or controlled development. We talk about the city becoming more dense and gridlocked, if you will, in some spots. And then on the same case, we're also worried about infrastructure.
Yeah.
Those go against each other. Tax relief goes against, all these things are competing for the same kind of funds, if you will, and or if development takes away from this or not developing takes away from something else, right? And that's where I think the biggest challenge is going to be here. I want a better school system. Well, it costs more money. Well, how are we gonna do that with and also maintain a tax rate that people can afford?
We never talked about the development on Railroad Ave that people are worried about. Is that part of this at all?
Everything is open to conversation.
And that just, people worried about high rises in Rantoul Street. I don't dislike Rantoul Street. Just has to be done properly. We already have one builder going in there. He's gonna put up a Motel 6, and that's not planned development. He's got, the city gave him a bunch of money, I believe. Now it's gonna be piecemeal. It's not a master plan for that area.
Where are you talking?
Railroad Ave, Cape Ann
By-
Market.
by,
Talk about for the MBTA
Didn't they
zoning.
give them 200,000?
We could, if we do it right, it can work. If we do it wrong, which we've already started to do it wrong, by just piecing in behind McDonald's.
Yep.
I do believe the city probably gave him money because he's having a higher percent of affordable units is part of the.
Yeah, it's not
Well,
right.
that's
It's not
another
right.
tension that we should discuss because, for example, I had found out the other day that the Community Preservation Act has that 1% property tax, which goes towards historical, affordable housing, and open space. So I get it, but when you look at the population, your population's getting older, they're going to fixed incomes, and you're expecting them to pay 1% more surcharge for affordable housing when they're on a fixed income. I just don't understand it. So now there's a thing where you can actually apply to have that not apply to your taxes if you're a certain age and you're on certain income. But you want to be able to have affordable housing. I'm not against affordable housing, but that's something I was thinking about is we're talking about it's a community, and it's supposed to be a community. So I thought synergy-wise, this is something I really thought about. You expect an elderly to pay when they're already struggling to make ends meet. I mean, some of them are trying to decide if they're going to pay for food or pay for medication. So you're charging them for, and the other day I was at a meeting where they were paying $20,000 to assess 10 of our statues and monuments, $2,000 a piece, just to assess how much it would cost to restore them. And I got told to be quiet. I kind of got shut off. But something we could do is, I would love to do give back. It's what about a compromise? If you're going to do affordable housing, someone's getting subsidized housing, you know, it's great. I mean, subsidized housing is nice, but what about a give back program? So in other words, okay, if we subsidize your housing, maybe you need to shovel an elderly person's sidewalk and steps. You know, do like a compromise. Like, you can't afford the housing, or rake their leaves, or cook them a meal, or visit them. Do something, you know, where it's a community effort.
I would love to envision
Something like that.
a model, like a village within somewhere with multi-generational living, where it's maybe there are even cars you can borrow for the day and you don't have to own it or something to that effect, where people are living together, where there's open space and just that wonderful opportunity for older folks and younger children to be together. That would, in my
Wouldn't that be
vision,
nice?
I would love to see a model of this, and beautiful houses, not, you know, cheap
That's
cookie cutter crap.
cluster zoning, and we
Right.
go against cluster zoning, where you save a whole bunch of land and you put small houses here. We always seem to vote that away. And
Right.
so we want the subdivision split level, but cluster zoning would be a great thing, and then we could put mixed housing in there, but, you know.
But on a small scale, let's say, and try it and see how it works. And to plant the trees and to maybe not have lawns, you know, that require all that irrigation and so forth, to think differently about how can you make this area beautiful without compromising your resources. So that would be really wonderful.
I think that there was an interesting comment, and I was at work, so I could barely hear my computer watching the meeting about replacing the seasonal water lines, right? And one of the gentlemen who was speaking about Rest Island said, well, when I moved here, there were no trees on Rest Island because it was clear cut. And there's a lot of, the power company has a lot of easements through there, and it's owned by National Grid. And I remembered, it reminded me of when I read a book about Dogtown, that it said Cape Ann was utterly devoid of trees.
Yep.
And they were bringing in lumber or bringing in wood for fireplaces on the train because there were no trees left on Cape Ann. And so between Dogtown and now, we have some trees back. There's not a ton of old growth, but up in Dogtown, there's some stands of fir in there that are amazing to walk through. And, you know, like Greg brought up, protecting some of that stuff, I think, is very important, and not forgetting that not within my lifetime, but really close, there were not as many trees. There was not as much forested area. Within 2 lifetimes, there weren't any. So I think it's important not to forget that, remembering our history, and as we develop, there would be no reason to clear cut again, but it's a very important thing just to kind of remember where we came from.
But we have a different climate now, too.
Totally.
And that's got to be considered in,
I
you know,
agree.
reforesting or.
Mother Nature will take over no matter what.
No matter
She will
what.
create going to be the Norway maple tree, an invasive species. But yeah, all of Cape Ann was totally denuded trees because people are, how old's that tree? And I just say, well, it's not 1900 because there are no trees.
Yeah, where we live, that used to be all dairy farm and farms.
Rock.
And lots of rock.
Yes, yes.
So can I build on something Jane said about this volunteering thing?
Wouldn't that be a great
Well,
idea for the community, for
one
the
of-
elderly? They're
a different
lonely, take 'em for a walk on the
a
boulevard.
different twist on it might be is you offer a some sort of abatement on your taxes for so many hours of volunteer work, and that would be a kind of a more a general way of applying it versus you know targeted, right? You just say, okay, this population of people, we need volunteers for a number of things, and then for that work, you get
Some
sort
credit.
of some credit towards your
Right.
taxes.
Great.
And also, I mean,
Yeah.
we live in the world of crowdfund. You know, when West Gloucester, before they replaced the school, put in the playground. That was a community effort, I'm pretty sure, and it was fundraised by the parents and but it was a PTA. Marcy Marcy Plant was a huge part of it, and I remember doing it because my kids were still there then. But maybe there are some projects that maybe the city really doesn't have to take on. Maybe it does become, like you said, that area down by the Fisherman's Wives statue is stunning, and it's being maintained, correct, not by the city. That's being
Which is okay.
which is fine.
Yeah.
And I think that pointing at the city and maybe saying everything has to be you maybe isn't the right way to go about it. Maybe it's, well, these projects that we want to get done, maybe this is crowdfunded, maybe this is volunteered, maybe this is, there are multiple ways of getting
Great.
to an
I
end.
mean, there's a lady who mows in Magnolia and picks up trash and stuff like that. Once I was asked, because that's the business I'm in, if I would, why don't you take on that project? Because my pet peeve is the street side overgrown, parks overgrown. Magnolia's always been an orphan stepchild. West
Yeah.
Gloucester.
Yeah.
We don't get the services of other areas. So our streets overgrown, parks are overgrown. And a director asked me, well, why don't you do that? And I said, really, you want me, my small company, to do that? Well, the city employs people, and what are they going to do? And that just really floored me that they had the gall to ask me to do their work. When I already pay taxes for somebody who should do that.
Right.
We don't take care of our areas. We don't the city doesn't shovel sidewalks. They don't clear sidewalks. So a homeowner is required to clear in front of their houses. So, but the city
Right.
doesn't plow their sidewalks to maintain things like that either, which is a problem.
We do have a number of programs throughout Gloucester that are entirely run by volunteers. They're not a nonprofit, they're just volunteer initiated. PAL being one of them, People Against Litter, they walk around and collect trash. The state provides the yellow trash bags, but they're distributed during the Horribles Parade, which is another completely volunteer organization. The Lobster Trap Tree, completely done by volunteers. So we have a history, and being part of this comprehensive plan, preserving those opportunities that are just run by volunteers. They're not taken over or picked up then and developed into a nonprofit or an organization in and of its own right that maintains that spirit of volunteerism across this community is really important.
Yeah.
Speaking of which is what this meeting has been, and our time has run out, but I do want to say, I think this has been a fantastic conversation among all of you. Civil, informative, incredibly intelligent, and insightful across the board. And I want to thank you all for being a part of this and give you an opportunity, if you would like, to have the last statement before we end the program. Anyone like to make a statement?
I just hope people are encouraged by what they've seen here. We don't know each other, at least I don't know many of these folks, but we've been able to have a civil conversation, which is, unique perhaps, and encourage you to have small gatherings and generate some information, generate some ideas. I think that's great.
I agree. I think that just knowing, going into any meeting like this, knowing that at the end of the day, at the end of the discussions, everybody's trying to do exactly the same thing. What their priorities are always different, and desires and thoughts, and that's healthy and good. It's not a bad thing, it's a very
Right.
good thing.
Right.
And just knowing that there will be differences of opinion, that there will be passions one way or another, at the end, everybody is trying to do the exact same thing. At least I would hope everybody's trying to do the exact same thing.
I think I'd like to encourage people to not just participate in this, and this might not be for everybody, but participate and pay attention to the city, because you might be able to offer something to the city that could benefit a lot of other people. But if you just sit on your couch, that's not going to happen. We need active people. We need active participation.
I agree, and I think what's important though is we need to. I think it's really important if we get an outreach program going, because not everyone has access to a computer. Not everyone knows how to do computers and links. You know, link here, link there, link here. I think maybe with this, like we could have they could televise a calendar on like this here on the TV, because most of your elderly are at home. They can watch the TV, they can watch the meetings, they can dial in. I just think the hybrids are a lot better. You know, I like to go to the meetings. The Zoom meetings are okay, but they're not very personal because you can't see the speakers. So you really can't put a face to the name. And I think they need to fix that so that when people do speak, you see them. So if you see them in town, you can say, hey, I saw you doing this. I just think we just don't have an active community, you know, where everyone can get involved equally. And I think that needs to change.
I can be very critical of the city a lot of times, but as I told Greg Verga the other day, is I really want to help more than be critical of it. But you know, there's so many things the city needs that we can help do it.
So this is one of the opportunities that you have to have a voice, and I'd like to extend that same opportunity to those of you watching tonight, and hope that you will take advantage of the comprehensive plan opportunities for participation, either through the survey, holding a meeting in the box like this yourself, or getting on the crowd mapping, which is the third program. All of them are accessible from the city's website, and I hope you'll take that opportunity. And again, thank you all for being here, and thank you for watching, and please stay involved. Have a good night.
Thank you.